Hello, I'm Chadwin Young, Battalion Chief here at St. Charles County Ambulance District, known by many in our community as SCAD. Now, an ambulance service isn't something that most people think about until the day that they need our help, but it's a major operation here within our community. We cover all cities and unincorporated areas within St. Charles County, which is almost 600 square miles. With each passing year, demand for service grows, and we run well over 50,000 calls for service every year, and that number continues to climb as the years go by. We add paramedics, stations, and ambulances to make sure we've got enough coverage for whenever you call us and to ensure that our response times stay short. Now, one of the most significant calls that we run is something called a cardiac arrest, and we respond to hundreds of those every year. Though cardiac arrest is a significant medical event, it's a situation where initial actions by bystanders, you, can have a big impact on the outcome. And that's what we're here to talk about today. The simple actions that you can take in those initial moments that could potentially save somebody's life. I've got a few of my colleagues here joining me today. And what we're going to do is walk you through all of this in a series of videos. Now, you've got some of our mannequins there with you that'll help you get a feel for what needs to be done in the moment. So let's get right into it. So you've probably heard of the terms heart attack and cardiac arrest before, and they often get used interchangeably. But let me talk about the difference between the two of them. Now, a heart attack happens when the flow of blood that brings oxygen to a part of your heart suddenly becomes blocked, which in turn creates stress on the heart, whereas a cardiac arrest is when the heart itself suddenly and unexpectedly stops beating. When everything's working normally, oxygen gets into the bloodstream via the lungs. You guys know how your body works. We breathe in air, air's got oxygen in it. That deep breath goes down into our lungs. Oxygen jumps across a super thin membrane inside your lungs and gets on your blood. And every time your heart beats, that oxygenated blood goes round and round throughout your body, but most importantly, up to your brain. Now, if someone suffers a cardiac arrest, their heart isn't pumping normally, and it's more than likely not beating. Now, that oxygen is not getting moved around within the body. That's the problem. It's critical that that blood gets moving and not just sitting there. If the brain goes without oxygen-rich blood, it's going to lead to bad outcomes. Just a few minutes of being oxygen deprived within the brain can lead to neurological damage or even death. As paramedics, we'd love to be by every patient's side immediately, but that process takes a bit of time, and so it's not possible. We have to recognize the issue. 911 needs to be called. We have to dispatch a unit. They have to drive to you, get their equipment, and then get inside the house. This is going to take a lot of time. And that's also going to make you an incredibly important piece of the equation for a cardiac arrest victim. Now, helping is way easier than you might think. If you've seen CPR done in movies or on TV, you've probably seen them doing compressions on the chest, along with mouth-to-mouth breaths. Well, here's the good news. Except for a few very specific situations, you don't need to provide those mouth-to-mouth breaths. The oxygen that was in the person's bloodstream doesn't immediately just disappear. We just need you to keep it moving until we can get there. If you walk away remembering nothing else today, here's what I need you to know. The 3 C's. We check, we call, and we compress. We check for responsiveness. We shake that person. We try to wake them up. We call 911 because that's who we need in an emergency situation. It's okay for you to either take your phone out, dial 911, put it on speakerphone, or you could task somebody else to call 911 while you continue to engage with the person in need. And then our 3rd C is compress. That's so that we can get that blood moving and back up to the brain, keep that flow of oxygen going. One of the most important pieces. Now, not sure how to do chest compressions? No worries at all. We're going to talk a lot more about that in those videos here in just a bit. Getting the hang of doing chest compressions can be a bit of a balancing act. There's a few things that you're going to want to keep your eye on while you're doing them, and it can take some practice to get it all to come together. First things first, we got to get your victim down to the floor. We cannot do CPR on someone who's still lying in a bed or on a couch or in a chair. We need a firm, hard surface below the person in need. You're going to position yourself right next to the person so you can get your torso right over the top of theirs. Think of the letter T. They're going to be laying off on the ground. You're going to be next to them with your knees up against their rib cage. Now you're going to take your left hand, your right hand, whichever one you want. You're going to place the heel of that hand on the lower half of their breastbone. Then put your other hand on top of your first hand. You can interlace your fingers together or just keep your hands on top of one another, whichever feels most natural and comfortable for you. You're going to want to make sure that your arms are nice and straight. Arms are straight up and down. Your elbows are locked so that you're looking face down onto that person. When we want to do compressions, this is what we want to pay attention to. Our rate. How fast are we going to do them? The depth, just how deep we're pushing, and the quality. Making sure that our hand placement is correct and that we're letting that chest come all the way back up after each compression and before the next. As far as compressing goes, I know that this is hard to put in perspective, but we're going to compress at about 2.5 inches of depth, where our rate is going to be roughly between 100 and 120 times a minute. And science shows us that this produces the ideal flow of oxygen-rich blood back up to the brain. We're going to do those compressions continuously with no breaks. Anytime we pause compressions, that nice flow of blood that we've created is going to get interrupted. You might wonder what happens if you don't go quite deep enough or quite fast enough. Well, we're going to do some practice on mannequins today so that you can get the hang of it and you can get a feel for what rate, depth, and quality is going to look like. But at the end of the day, you've got to keep this in mind. Something is better than nothing. And all that we're asking is for you to do the best that you can for as long as you can. I would rather walk into a scene and see somebody doing B+ quality CPR than somebody doing nothing at all for the person in need on the ground. Pretty common question, totally fair to ask. Am I going to break ribs doing CPR? Short answer, absolutely. It's very possible to pop the cartilage that surrounds their sternum and keeps the ribs attached to it. As I compress on the chest, there is a highly likely chance that you're going to separate the two and you're going to break some of those ribs. It's okay. Broken ribs heal. All right, so it's almost time to practice. Let's talk a little bit about the mannequins that we're going to practice with here today.
Hey everybody, my name's Kyle Gaines. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Ambulance District. I'm going to run through some of the highlights of the mannequins we're going to use today. These guys are equipped with a series of lights on their left shoulder. It's usually best to position yourself on the other side of the body so you can easily look down at the lights for feedback. If you're doing compressions at the correct depth and at a rate of 100 to 120, these guys are going to give you 2 green lights. If you're compressing to the right depth but just need to go a little faster, you'll get a single green light. If you're going at the right depth but way too slow, the light will be red, and if you're not pressing deep enough, the light will flash red. Some of our mannequins are a little newer than others and have an extra feature, an orange light that will blink between the 2 green ones if you're compressing too fast. In addition to the lights, you should hear and feel a click when you compress to the right depth on the mannequins. Now it's time for you to try it for yourself. In the next video, I'll do 2 minutes of chest compressions, and I want you to practice along with me. We'll quickly review hand placement and body mechanics, then get to work. Get yourself positioned right next to your victim, who should be lying on the floor. Put the heel of one hand on the lower half of the breastbone. Put the other hand on top of the first, then begin your 2 minutes of chest compressions.
My name's Amanda Burig, and I'm the Community Relations Coordinator here at St. Charles County Ambulance District. As you likely now realize, performing chest compressions is hard work for rescuers. No matter how strong you are, it's fatiguing, and over time, your rate, depth, and quality will suffer. That's why it's important to switch rescuers every 2 minutes if possible. Even if the other person has never had training, you can talk them through it. Don't be afraid to be assertive. Coach them through proper depth, rate, and quality. If you do have someone there who can switch with you, try to make that transition between rescuers as quick as possible. Remember, we want to minimize interruptions and chest compressions to keep that oxygen-rich blood flow going to the brain. While we do ideally want to switch out rescuers, there is such a thing as too many cooks in the kitchen. 2 or 3 people switching every 2 minutes is probably ideal. If you look around places that you go to regularly, you may have noticed cabinets on the wall that say AED on the front. AED stands for Automated External Defibrillator, and you can find them at all kinds of places like schools, gyms, airports, grocery stores, and more. An AED is a machine with a computer inside that can fix the abnormal heart rhythm that many people who suffer cardiac arrest are experiencing. If you remember back to our check, call, compress message from the beginning, it's good to get in the habit of asking for an AED during the call step. When sending someone to call 911, also have them check to see if an AED is in the building while you'll start compressions. You can use an AED as soon as it becomes available. Let someone else take over compressions while you get things set up. To start, we're going to turn the unit on. It will go through a self-test, then begin walking you through the steps of use. At this point, we do need to unbutton, pull up, or cut the person's shirt off. AED pads must be placed on bare skin. The AED will tell you to attach the pads, which look a bit like stickers. They'll have pictures on them showing you where on the chest they should be placed. Generally, it's the upper right chest and lower left chest. At this point, you'll plug the connector into the AED and it will begin looking to identify a heart rhythm. After analyzing, it may say shock needed or no shock needed. If a shock is recommended, the AED will charge and tell you to press the shock button. Before you do this, it's important to make sure that nobody is touching the patient. Do this by clearly stating, "Everyone, stand clear." Even if the AED says no shock needed, it's okay. Just follow the prompts and return to providing chest compressions. Remember to leave the AED pads connected and the unit turned on after you provide a shock. The unit will tell you to resume CPR. After about 2 minutes, the AED will reanalyze to see if the victim needs a shock and will continue this cycle until first responders arrive. When paired with good quality CPR, an AED can significantly improve chances of survival. It's important to remember, though, that an AED does not replace the need for good quality compressions. It's a great add-on.
Now, we've thrown a lot at you already today, and hopefully it's all starting to make sense. But we're going to walk you through a 2-rescuer scenario. I've got Kyle and Amanda. They're going to be our rescuers, and I'll walk you through what's happening as it occurs.
Hey, you okay? Amanda, call 911 and get the AED for me, please.
So we've recognized an emergency situation, we've checked, we've called, and we've started compressions. If you notice Kyle right now, he's straight up and down over the top of this person. His knees are close to the rib cage. His elbows are locked. In this position, it's going to allow him to give more effective compressions for a longer duration, which is good for him because it's not as painful, and it's even better for the person on the ground because right now we have to get this blood flowing throughout the body in order to circulate oxygenated blood back up to the brain.
Thanks. Take over chest compressions, please.
So we always want to try to keep fresh hands on the chest. So now that Amanda has arrived with the AEDs, we swap providers. So she's got fresh arms, so she's going straight to the compression matrix. And Kyle's over here and he's going to operate the AED.
Apply pads to patient's bare chest.
First things first, turn it on, listen to what it says.
Apply pads to patient's bare chest.
Pads are on the chest.
Pads connector next to flashing light.
And now we're going to connect it.
Do not touch the patient. Analyzing heart rhythm.
Just listen to what it says.
Do not touch the patient. Analyzing heart rhythm. Shock advised. Charging. Stay clear of patient. Deliver shock now.
You're clear. I'm clear. We're all clear.
Now.
Shocking.
Shock delivered. It is safe to touch the patient.
Super important to listen to the tones. It said that a shock was advised. It said to steer clear, confirm that everyone is cleared, no one is touching the patient. We delivered the shock, and then it prompts us, you're clear to resume CPR. So we immediately go back on the chest. We try to minimize compression time being off of the chest, so that way we can always keep that oxygenated blood flowing back up to the brain where it really, really needs to be. So here's the last piece of the puzzle. I'm a very visual learner, so I'm going to show you, try to visualize why CPR is so important and what it actually looks like once you get that blood circulating throughout the body and what it looks like once it gets up to the brain. So first things first, take that deep breath. We shake them, try to wake them up. Hey, are you okay? No response. Call 911. Activate the emergency response system, grab an AED. We're going to find our spot on the chest. Position your hands, left hand, right hand, doesn't matter which one. Center of the chest, arms straight up and down, elbows locked. Take that deep breath, start doing our compressions. If you notice, you can see that blood flow is coming up over the chest wall, up the neck, and it's getting to the brain. That brain has oxygenated blood getting to it. If you don't take that deep breath right out of the gate, this is what it looks like. I'm pushing too fast. If you notice, these lines are solid. They're not pulsating anymore. Over the chest wall, up to the neck, but not to the brain. Without fail, if I push too fast, I will always turn into this. Too fast, you're going to gas out. You got to remember, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So if you look at the chest wall, you can see that blood is pulsating. It's pulsating up the neck, but it's not getting to the brain. That's why it's super important to breathe before we find ourselves in this situation. Try to calm ourselves. Take that deep breath, and we're going to engage. And when you do that, it's going to look exactly like this. Perfect blood flow over the chest wall, up the neck, and then to the brain. The brain is going to get oxygenated blood that it desperately needs. Find that rhythm, ride that wave. This is my visual representation of why CPR is so important and how you can make a difference in trying to save somebody's life.
When we present this material to people, we often get asked if a bystander can be held legally liable if the outcome isn't positive or if a rib gets broken during CPR. Missouri and every other state have what's called the Good Samaritan Law, and that exists to protect those bystanders who are just trying to help somebody in need. As long as you're acting in good faith and within the scope of your knowledge, you are protected from any liability, even if the person doesn't ultimately survive. The Good Samaritan Law extends to CPR, AED use, basic first aid, and a few other items. You can find more specifics related to the law online.
We understand that even with some training, this is still going to be a scary situation. And I know that it's easier said than done. But first things first, try to take a deep breath, remain calm, and think back to the concepts that we've talked about today. Even if you pull all the exact numbers or all of the finer points, if you can just remember, check, call, compress, you're going to be doing that patient a great service. Cardiac arrest is a very serious medical event, and I'll be honest with you, not everyone survives it. But I will tell you this, those that do survive almost always have bystander CPR performed prior to our arrival. That early 911 activation and those good quality chest compressions in the initial minutes of the emergency give that victim the best possible fighting chance. On behalf of our whole team here at St. Charles County Ambulance District, we thank you for taking the time to learn this life-saving skill today. If you want to learn more about CPR, or maybe you're considering a career as a paramedic, take a look at our website, SCAD.com. That's SCCAD.com.